this schedule really shapes up for a playoff run with a 12-team playoff.
Areas that, you need to get from experience, which is just, hey, I need to make quicker decisions.
How do you define success for this team?
National championship.
What's going on, y'all? Bud Elliott here of the Cover 3 College Ball Podcast. That's Chris Anderson. Today's summer school. We're talking West Virginia. What's going on, man? Welcome back.
Hey, I appreciate I being here. You invited me on. Looking forward to talking some real live football. We're here in the middle of summer, and all I've been doing is recruiting, and baseball. Maybe WVU is a baseball school. I don't know,
okay.
But I'm ready to talk real football here.
Well, with all the, I'm sure all the SEC teams that got bids to the regionals made it through the supers.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. We already know.
Yeah,
at least a couple did not. So nice to see a couple of different conferences represented. Speaking of being represented, West Virginia is represented by a new coach this year. Rich Rodriguez comes back after a successful stint at Jacksonville State. Before that, ULM. Before that, obviously, he was a really, really good coach at West Virginia with a kind of failed Michigan stop in between. What are we expecting as far as changes to the program that we'll be able to see on the field this year?
I think there's going to be a more efficient and assertive attitude around Morgantown. A lot of coaches come in talking like that, like, hey, we're going to change the mentality. Because whether the previous coaching staff was or was not, if you are ousted because you are losing, then the assumption is, you don't have that right fit, that right mentality, the aggressiveness, whatever it is. And in this case, Rich Rodriguez's motto here at West Virginia now is hard edge. Having a hard edge, and he kind of led through practices, and we've heard nothing but, hey, this is different. There's no wasted time. Everything, there's lots of screaming, there's lots of yelling, there's lots of running around. And again, I referenced me being at recruiting camps earlier this summer. You're even seeing it there. And I actually, talked with one of my coworkers, like, hey, I wonder what it's going to be like at camp this year. This is what I'm looking forward to. Is he going to treat it like he does his own players? Because sometimes you see coaches soften it up for recruits and then get tough once they get on campus. And he opened up his first recruiting camp back at West Virginia, was like, hey, we're going to coach you hard. We're going to piss you off. And we don't care. If you don't like it, we probably don't want you as a recruit anyway. And you could see it even during the recruiting camps that he was stopping every single drill, yelling at players, getting them to do it right, got them to do it right, and then move forward. And it was a very efficient and, I'll say it, hard edge camp, even for high school. So I suspect it's a lot of the same for the guys that are actually on the team.
So he can be a bit of a hard ass, but that's not really a surprise to anybody who covered him the first time, I think, or really at any of the stops. So up tempo, heavy QB run, heavy spread option. Feels like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Then they're just bringing that system in. Now Nico, the quarterback who played a good bit last year when Garrett Green went down with injury, although he stayed, I guess, healthier last year than he did the prior year, right? I mean, Nico was a high school wrestler. He's got some athleticism. I don't know if he has a ton of speed. Is he the guy? Are they looking at Jalen Henderson? Who do we think is going to QB this team?
It sounds like it's one of those two. And I think legitimately Rich Rodriguez feels comfortable with both, because even during the spring when we had media availability with him, we would ask, hey, what's going on with the post-spring portal? And he would say the only position that we will not recruit after spring is quarterback. And you're not saying that if you don't feel comfortable with at least two quarterbacks. So I would assume he's comfortable with both Henderson and Nico Marchio. Both got reps with the first team during the spring game. I think he made it pretty clear it's those two and then it's everyone else. I'm not expecting a rotation or anything like that. I think it's just still a competition that's going on, and he feels comfortable with both.
So style-wise, for those of us who have not seen Jalen, is Jalen Henderson the A&M kid who played against Oklahoma State in the bowl game?
Yeah, so he came in, looked great at Texas A&M for a couple games. Yeah, then the next year I think he got hurt and then transferred. So, yeah.
We have seen Rich Rod rotate quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Not by series really, but I mean, he at Jacksonville State last year, he played like three kids at one time. So maybe both get to play.
Well, I mean, he did. Hey, he infamously started that way at West Virginia. Not started that way, but the Pat White era actually wasn't the Pat White era, because it was the Adam Bednarik and Pat White era to start, until finally he was just like, all right, enough's enough. Pat White is very clearly the better option here, and switched full time to Pat. So, yeah.
I'm excited about this running back room, though. I mean, Jaheim White's back. Is Donaldson back?
He is not. He's over at Ohio State now.
Okay, that's right. And then, Jalen Knighton is a home run hitter, like not a real tough in between the tackles guy, but you fall step on him, he can get out the gate. I think like a Jaheim White, Jalen Knighton duo could be pretty nice. Is there anybody else who's like legitimately in the mix?
Yeah, I think really, I mean, Ty Edwards is a big guy that might fill some of those CJ Donaldson goal line
Okay.
stuff, but that's more of a situational stuff. I keep an eye on Dior Hubbard. I mean, he's a redshirt freshman and from the previous coaching staff, but very early on, again, we'll probably talk about it as this goes on, but there's a ton of turnover. A ton of guys got kind of run out of the program with the coaching change. Very early on, the coaching staff saw Hubbard and was like, wait, no, you're not going anywhere. We like you. We like you a lot. And so that's somebody they really liked. He was like the second string running back through most of spring. Now, again, they went out and added a couple more. They added 3 more after spring, including Knighton. So I don't know if that's still going to be the case, but they really like him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the mix.
So receiver wise, I mean, this has never been much of a passing game to write home. I guess, Pat White did throw it around pretty well, but at most of the stops, it's been more, we're going to hit home runs on the ground. We're also going to hit our singles and doubles on the ground. And if you really, really bunch it up against the run, we'll throw some bubbles and some play action stuff, I guess. I mean, Clement's gone, Ray's gone. I don't know what to make of some of these dudes they brought from Jacksonville State, because they, like, Cam Vaughn was their number 1 at Jack State, but Conference USA to the Big 12 that's a pretty big step. Do you have a sense of who might be a true number 1 for this team?
Again, I think, you mentioned Vaughn. I don't know if he's a true number 1, but he's a guy that they liked during spring. Obviously, they knew him. The whole coaching staff knew who he was. They got the same wide receivers coach from Jack State following up to West Virginia, so very familiar there. But he was one of the few guys that I heard truly made plays when they went full 11 on 11 and had some intra-squad scrimmages. So that's somebody they like. But like you said, is that a number 1? Is that an alpha? I think this is a problem that West Virginia's had through multiple coaching staffs since Dana Holgorsen departed. Of, hey, you got a lot of number 2 receivers, you got a lot of number 3 receivers, but who's your number 1? And I feel like it's just deja vu again here, because you see a lot of names. You're like, oh yeah, Preston Fox he's in the mix. Jaden Bray was in the mix. Warren Singleton was a starter. Jared Bowie was a starter. Like, you're just going through, but then it's like, but who's the guy you're throwing to on 3rd and 10 in one-on-one coverage? I don't know. I don't know if the answer's there. I like Jeffrey Weimer, who's coming from, I think it was Idaho, was very productive there. But again, it could be one of those guys, but it's going to be tough.
So committee by running back, committee by receiver, a lot of quarterbacks stealing touchdowns. Probably not the most fruitful fantasy type team.
I was going to say, I'd stick with the quarterback and nobody else at this point if you're picking fantasy. Yeah.
So offensive line last year, NFL draft, transferred to Virginia Tech, graduated from left to right, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
How is this going to look? And did they bring Rick Trickett?
They did not. They tried to. They tried to bring Rick Trickett, but he wanted to stay back down there, finish things out there. I think, honestly, actually, I'm not going to say he wanted to stay. He did want to stay down there, but he came right out and said it. I believe it was on an interview with, and I want to give him credit, Tony Caridi and some of the guys back in Morgantown on Metro News. And he said, hey, like, I don't want to deal with big time football because all of these kids want is money. I want to deal with college athletes and develop them. I want to stay at the smaller schools. And that's really what it came down to. And then they went out, and I thought they hired a pretty good guy, a guy who had a nice reputation, at least in Jack Bicknell, who's been at Wisconsin, most recently it was Wisconsin. I believe it was a UNC before that, has some NFL experience. So they're hoping he can help there. But that room may or may not be a disaster. You noted all of the departures due to transfer, draft, graduation. Like, it was already going to get hit pretty hard regardless of any kind of coaching change. The guys that were supposed to stick around really loved Matt Moore, the former offensive line coach. He went to Virginia Tech, and West Virginia, Virginia Tech, not too far from each other. Nice, easy trip for some of those guys to just transfer, not far from their homes in high school as well. So they made those moves. And West Virginia was left with essentially only one player in Landing Livingston, who was the backup center and saw, I think it was like 80 snaps. That was it. That's all that's really coming back from last year. So they went an overhaul, brought in 5 transfers, I believe it was, in the winter. went through spring football, and the one practice where we had access to watch and they tried to put out an offensive line, my coworker Mike listed the first and second team, and it was about 8 walk-ons that were unlikely to even be on the team post-spring. And Rich Rodriguez made it pretty clear that he was very unhappy with how things looked in that room, and then followed through with that by adding 6 more transfers, a lot of them seniors, via the transfer portal after spring. So 11 new transfers, a handful of new recruits. Who knows what it's going to look like, but they certainly weren't happy with it during spring.
Yeah. Okay. That's and
Sorry,
yet
that was a lot. That was a lot.
Well, no, but I have this weird confidence that Rich Rod, just because like the system is different, and you can probably exploit some inefficiencies. Like, you don't always have to have like the 5-star tackle type, player. Like it's more because it is so much more run than pass, and that. Let's hit a quick break here. On the flip side, I am pretty curious about this defense. I think they have an intriguing hire here.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, guys, welcome back into the Cover 3 College Ball Podcast Summer School Edition. That's Chris Anderson. We are talking all things West Virginia today. So they get Zach Alley from Oklahoma, who reunites with Rich when they were together at Jacksonville State before. 3-3-5, very aggressive scheme. How do you expect this to work? I mean, they do lose their top 3 defensive linemen to graduation, the draft, and I think one transferred to Penn State somewhere. I don't know. Mm-hmm. No, sorry, he graduated. And then linebackers, the top 4 are all gone. So like front 7 wise, I don't know what I expect here.
I don't know if I do either. I mean, there's some pieces they're familiar with. Ed Vesteranen was a guy that was supposed to be a starter. He was a starter 2 years ago, began last year as a starter, got hurt, will be back, will be full strength. And so I would pencil him in maybe as kind of like he's more of like a 3 technique more than anything. So he's somebody that should make a difference. They got some snaps from Hammond Russell and Asani Redwood last year that were fine, like P4 caliber. Difference making kind of snaps, not really, but sustainable. Where does it go from there, I think, is the big question mark. They went out and added Jamori Robinson, who was the Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year, big sack guy for UTSA. Is he going to line up as one of the defensive ends? Is he going to be more of a stand-up bandit type that's going to be rushing the edge? Don't know. We'll have to see. But he is somebody that one way or another they're expecting to make a difference. So if you could put him on one edge, Eddie V in the middle, and maybe you can piece together something fine between Russell and Redwood. They added Eddie Kelly from Missouri, who's gotten snaps at Georgia Tech and Missouri over the last couple of years. So he's somebody that can be part of the rotation. Is that enough to really be big time? I think that's enough to be solid, but you're going to need to find more is the problem, because throughout the year, it's just not going to last. So you need to find more. And I think that's going to be a little tougher as the season comes.
For sure. The secondary loses, I mean, the kind of the top 4, at least by snap count. But there are some more recognizable names here, I guess, on the way in. Am I wrong to assume that like the secondary is probably in better shape than the front 7?
They're hoping so. I mean, last year, West Virginia had one of the worst secondaries in the entire country. So all departures, whether graduation or transfer, they were okay with. I think as they arrived, we do this on our site where I said capital P person. I think you could assume what I'm talking about here. Told me when I asked about some of the guys sticking around in the secondary, told me, hey, they couldn't even start for the defense that ranked 130th in the country last year. So why would they be part of the program moving forward? No surprise that a lot of those guys are out. They brought in, I've lost count. So over a dozen double-digit defensive back transfers, most of them seniors, guys that they think can make a difference back there. And they're just going to let it kind of all play out and figure out who could start there. I think the big name to know, the one they were most excited about, or at least the one maybe they spent the most money on, was Michael Coates out of Nevada. If you go back and if you are one of those people that believes in the PFF numbers, and again, it has its positives and its negatives, he ranks as far as coverage grade as one of the best in the country this past season. And most of the guys that were above him are in the NFL now. They got taken in the NFL draft. He was one of the top cover guys in all of the country, according to PFF, that's returning. So they are really excited about him. I would pencil him in as one of the corners, and they're hoping to kind of piece together everything else around there.
All right, so super aggressive defense, very, very fast offense. If they stay healthy, this could actually end up, be like they could probably jump some teams fairly early on just with the aggressiveness. Probably a high variance, like crazy season to watch for these guys if all goes well. You got Robert Morris at Ohio, host Pitt, at Kansas, Utah, at BYU. And then finally a bye week come week 7 at UCF, TCU, at Houston, host Colorado, at Arizona State, bye week. Nice to get that bye week, second last week of the season, right? And then host Texas Tech. Chris, how do you define success for this team in 2025? I feel like there are so many moving pieces. This is one of the most upheaval rosters I've ever seen.
Bowl game, bare minimum. Again, we're in the world of you're retooling rosters, and we've discussed the position by position here. And for a big summary for those looking big picture, we're talking 80 to 90 new players on this team. Yeah. So and you're getting a bunch of seniors, bunch of juniors, bunch of guys that you expect to contribute right away. And Rich Rodriguez has said it, like he's not here to kind of build into it. He is brought in here to win right away. And given the way the hire went down, and again, obviously we've kind of touched on the history of him at West Virginia and how he left, leaving for Michigan and leaving right before a bowl game and all this, that had some hard feelings. And so when he came back, there was some split among donors of, hey, some are very excited about this. Some still hate him for 2007. That is going to put pressure on the win now. There's no question about it. So bowl game, absolute minimum. And there's going to have to be some other parts to it. I think of, hey, he's still got it on offense. I think there is an expectation of, with Rich Rodriguez and a Rich Rodriguez offense, the basement, the bottom for the floor for an offense is pretty high. Like it should be at least average, preferably much better than average. The defense want to see progress. West Virginia spent a lot of money on Zach Alvey. They got into a bidding war with Oklahoma and won. How many times are you going to say that West Virginia got into a bidding war with Oklahoma for a coach and won? And that's because they knew, hey, Rich and his guys, whatever they spend over there, they'll figure it out. Defense, they need all the help they can get. So they spent big money on Zach Alvey. So if you're rolling the dice, bringing Rich Rodriguez back and the offense ain't better, that's not good. If you're spending big money on Zach Alvey and the defense doesn't get better, that's not good. So it's bowl game and improvement on defense and at least average to above average offense.
I was looking at that. I mean, I kind of thought too, like even though Rich kind of has the hard ass rep, what does that say about what Allie thought about what was going to happen to Venables?
That's curious. Yeah. Like
I
was wondering if he was, yeah.
And I'm not trying to like throw shade there, but you know what it's like to work for Rich. The money's very good both places. I assume you got like a 3 or 4 year deal.
Hey, go ahead. Say it, bud. Say it right here so they can clip it for the Oklahoma side. Go ahead.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, maybe first time head coaches oftentimes micromanage stuff pretty hard.
Yeah.
At least that's kind of the vibes that I was picking up. So Venables is certainly allowed to change and adapt and evolve how he does things. And, Allie's worked for both and chose to go back to Rich Rod, right?
I think that's certainly part of it. Yeah, you got Venables, and Venables is a defensive guy. He's got his defense, and even if he's there, but you go to West Virginia, Rich Rodriguez is essentially saying, hey, all I ask is that you be aggressive, you work hard, you be efficient. Everything else is yours. Like, you got that side of the ball. See you later. See you on Saturday. So I think that's better working conditions too, I would think, even with Rich being a hard ass.
Completely agree. I could see a bowl game. I mean, they kind of need a few of these teams not to play at their ceiling.
Yeah.
Like if all the Tech transfers hit, if Arizona stays as good as they were last year, if TCU stays super healthy, if BYU's quarterback situation is the kids playing, and Utah's new offense clicks and KU Daniels is healthy all year, that's going to be a tough slate. But that's a lot of ifs I just said, right? Like the Mountaineers have a lot of ifs, but so do a lot of teams on this schedule. So
right. I think the Robert Morris Ohio start, that's the first time in a long time West Virginia is going FCS G5 to start. I mean, Neil Brown complained about it and he took some heat for it. But I see his point about how they kept opening with Penn State and Virginia Tech, and on and on and on. And Rich Rodriguez, they finally get to a schedule that's a little bit easier non-conference, and he's gone. So 2-0 start is an absolute must. Obviously, I think a 3-0 start might be a must as well, with that third game being Pitt at home. And given that Rich Rodriguez's last game at West Virginia was a 13-9 loss to Pitt with the national championship berth on the line. So 3-0 might be mandatory. Like, that's hard to say, but it might be.
I think so as well. Awesome, Chris. Really enjoyed this, and we will see you. I can't go to the Big 12 media day this year, but hopefully soon, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.